Thank you, as always, for listening to Fluff and Crunch. In this episode, Chris and I pick up with what has become a tradition now. We do a year in review episode wherein we look back on things that happened in the calendar year as it's coming to a close, some of our goals, our aspirations that we set out for ourselves at the beginning of the year and how we lined up and met those things or not, and in general, what we thought about our year and our year in gaming. Thanks, as always, for listening. All right, there we go. We are recording our year in review episode. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm pretty well, actually. Yeah, I am actually. That's good.
You didn't catch the cold then?
No, I didn't. I dodged the funk that was moving through the house, and I just said that I was invincible or I was invulnerable to that. That was my Marvel superheroes invulnerability power. So, nope. I'm good.
Yes, I didn't manage that early this year. I was the one with the germs and the other two avoided it. So.
Yeah, well.
Oh, well.
So how's your week been? And did you get any gaming in? Although I probably know the answer to this.
We played a board game. Unfortunately, the board game was so successful that we'll be playing the board game next week.
Could be worse.
I mean, we had good fun. We played another game that I've got on a Kickstarter that we hadn't got round to playing, and it was good fun.
Good.
So yeah, exactly. Could be worse.
Good.
How about you?
Well, we did another session of Kingmaker. It'll actually be our last for a few weeks. For the next three Saturdays, we have either someone's out, or I'm gone, or we're doing something a little bit different right before Christmas. So we won't play Kingmaker again until the last Saturday of December. But we had another session. We had one combat encounter way at the end of the session, and it was cool. It was a lot of in-character role playing, a lot of planning and whatnot, because the story requires a lot of forethought. You can't just you don't just move from figurative room to room killing stuff.
Yeah.
You had to politic and rub elbows with the locals, and it was good. It was it is starting to blossom, and the characters are growing and the story's growing, and I'm able to add things in that connect to different characters. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Yeah. But go ahead.
I was going to say, today, having done this last year, we're going to do it again. But this year we've been better because I went back and listened twice to last year's episode where we did a review of 2022, and listening to it was very clear that we hadn't listened to our 2021 or 2022 preview episode. So I was like, right, I'm going to do that. So we are going to talk about how 2023, the podcast, our wishes, our hopes, gaming and all that stuff, some awards at the end, but all for stuff that happened. And then we will have a separate episode on looking ahead to 2024.
Yep. So the last episode, this will be the episode right before Christmas. And the last episode of the calendar year of the year will be our forward-looking forecaster plans for world domination for 2024. So you put this together. You listened to that episode. I think that's hilarious. It's like we should have listened to the original plan, but you did that. So let's go ahead and work through our review of what we had planned for, and then what we did and what we think about the year 2023 in gaming and for our show.
Yeah. So before we get into the show stuff, the initial stuff was what we thought we were going to do, kind of what we were thinking of doing, not necessarily gaming, but game related. I was super vague about this. I had this line where I said, well, I was already planning on going, I knew I was probably going to finish part-time. And I essentially said that either I would spend my day off a week writing something, or I won't spend my day off a week writing something. I'll spend it doing other things, in which case I was chilling out and relaxing. So it was a win-win.
Yes.
I didn't really do any writing. Well, that's not entirely true. I did a tiny bit of writing when the World Builders program dropped, which I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit more detail. When the World Builders program dropped and Jeremy said, I'm going to write this big Aris thing I've been working on for months, I went, I'm going to beat you.
And you did.
And I did. I released a handful of pages of a kind of knockoff Shadowrun cyberpunk thing, and I got that out first for no other reason than I could say I was first. Whereas Jeremy released something with quality, but Jeremy can talk. You could talk about that. But I was first.
Yeah, you were. You win. The whole World Builders program, if you remember back, or if you're not familiar, it was mentioned, it was implied, it was suggested, whatever, in late 2021 for several months, actually. For quite a while, people had been asking about it. Will there be a SRD for 2D20, so on and so forth. And it was finally released, and I translated the Judas Priest adventure that I'd written for Conan for just for anybody's use. I translated that into the a draft of the rules, and then I spent like the first 5 months, from like February-ish, late January, February through June, writing Eris.
Yeah.
And it came in at just under 100,000 words. It's about 200 pages. It's 238 pages total, but that's with about 30 some odd pages of reprints of tables and charts that are throughout the book in an appendix. So really, it's roughly 200 pages. It's the most I've ever written in one thing, and but I did it. So that was a goal.
You then also you told me how much you've made from that, and you thought it was a small amount, and I didn't. I don't know whether you want to tell our listeners though.
I'll say this, because I figured that in polite company you never have to talk about your salary or how you voted. So I'm not going to do either of those things. But my wife and I are going on a cruise for our 20th anniversary next year, and I have paid for some pieces and parts of that with what I've made. So
I think one thing worth thinking is that you only get half of
Correct.
what it actually made.
Correct.
And I think when you think of it in that terms, I think that's a very respectable number that you made. And when you said that, I went, it's chump change, and I was like, that's not chump change. I actually think that's very impressive.
Well, I mean, like, I want rolling in $100 bills on an oversized heart-shaped bed in a tacky hotel. That's what I want.
But you were never going to get that from
I was never going to get that
expansion to a community content thing for a role-playing game that a lot of people don't play. So I actually thought that was a very good number, and I was very impressed.
Thank you.
So I think, well done you. Because actually, you did the quick start, and then you carried on and wrote kind of like a primer, and then you did go all the way through, and you released like a fully realized, setting and you could have just kind of gone, here's a short version of the rules and here's a short version of the setting, but there's quite a lot of setting in it, and the rules are very detailed. It's as detailed as certainly it's more detailed than any of the other versions of ones I've seen on World Builders program.
Thank you.
And you had examples and stuff. So yeah, I think that was really good. And that was you didn't even say you were necessarily going to do that, but because you just said you wanted to do some writing, but you not only did that, you did some other writing.
I did. I had an adventure for Achtung Cthulhu that Modifius bought. That's Operation Talisman, and that's available on their site. And then I have written 2 Achtung Cthulhu adventures, Jungle Rot and now Island Getaway, that are on the World Builders program. I did those myself.
Know you've done 2 on the World. So you've written, in total, you've written 3 things for Achtung Cthulhu this year, and then a bunch of Aris stuff.
Yeah.
You had a proper year of writing stuff. Yeah, I wrote one little quick start, and I did do a 5e campaign, which I played through to the end, but we'll talk about that more later, which is kind of the only thing I said I was going to do. So I did do what I said I was going to do. So
gaming related, we both did stuff. I've definitely, I'm going to continue. One of the problems I've run into with Eris is I feel like I spent so much time, so focused on it by myself, that I poured so much of like creative energy into it that I now, my Eris well is kind of dry.
Oh, that's a shame. Because you haven't actually played it, have you? You haven't
I've run it
at
cons. I've run it I've run it at game stores. But I am currently not running it as my my home system.
I would really like to see you run it I'd run that, your actual Aris 2D20. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I know. I gotta think through that. But
I'm gonna remember this for the next episode so I can press you into say that you're gonna do.
Okay. We'll table that and move that forward. Okay, so we both did some writing for World Builders, so that's gaming related. Those were things that we were goals, and to varying degrees, we both did that. So that's bravo to us.
So podcast wise, the main, actually, there was only really one thing. We were very happy that a year before we'd said we wanted to do a Discord, and we did a Discord. And then I said, can't we do a YouTube? And you said, yes, YouTube will be easy. And I thought you were talking out of your ass. And literally you dropped the episode where you said we're going to do that. You said, well, I could drop this episode. Actually, I don't know if you did, but you did. Everything since then has been on YouTube, which I still think we forget most of the time.
Here's the trouble. You know what? I realized I am very much a ready, shoot, aim kind of person. I will, like, I'll get an idea and I'll go do it and then look at what happened and then figure out. I mean, there are some things that I'm very methodical and like forward planning. With this, I have realized now that I knew nothing about how to do a YouTube channel outside of just uploading videos. And so I'll talk more in detail in our forecast episode about what we're going to do with the YouTube channel. But you're right. We plan to create a YouTube channel. We did create a YouTube channel. Now we're going to have a fully operational battle YouTube channel for 2024.
It is funny looking at which videos get more views, because to some extent there's very, very little pattern to it.
No, you're right.
I mean, there are the only one you could, in fact, the one perfect example of how there's no pattern is where we did the captain's log thing. The story, the stuff about how captain's log works, okay, it gets quite a few views.
Yeah.
And like, so I think with Jim Johnson, loads of views. That's probably, I'm guessing that's our biggest video, because that
one of them
way
totally makes sense.
We got 395 views on that, 41 on our review of it, normal numbers. Then when we did an episode on how to create characters for it, 91 views. Oh, that's pretty. But then we're down to 31 for the ship creation.
Yep.
But then we go up to 33 for the first act of how to do it. And we dropped it now. This is the bit I expect. Right, Act 2, 14. All right, so people who didn't like us doing our first episode, will drop to the second. But then we get more views for the third episode.
It's so weird. It's just so
there's
strange.
No pattern there. But I mean, some of this is, are there people who watch the podcast and also watch the YouTube? Are there people who only watch the YouTube and never watch? I don't think we have any way of knowing that.
These are things that we're so let's table that. We said we were going to do it. We did it. And in 2024, here's the teaser. We're going to do it better. We're going to do it more effectively.
So, but it's quite funny to look and see that, there are things here that people have listened to. I mean, I don't know how many comments we ever get.
You know what?
You have all the stats, so
very few. But like again, that's something we'll talk about because I do have plans.
But yeah, that's one of the things. When I tried to put stuff on YouTube, I found very quickly that YouTube's very good at giving you a lot of stats, and most of the stats are not nice reading.
Right.
The drop off into an episode.
Oh, yeah. You're like, wow, people watched it for 1 minute and 32 seconds.
Yeah, and you're just like, ugh. And
we're going to fix that.
I think why I stopped very quickly putting stuff on YouTube, because it was quite depressing. Yeah. On a blog, it was much easier. I could see how many people have read it and where they're from. Brilliant. I like those numbers. This is how many people switched off after 5 minutes. I don't want to know that. It's awful.
So what else? What else was on what's the next thing on our?
So the next thing we talked about is actually what we thought was games wise. So essentially what we thought was what we were interested in, or what we thought was going to happen games wise. So we talked a bit about
not in our game. Do you mean in our games?
No, I mean like the two,
gaming writ large,
the game world at large. So we talked quite a bit about the World Builders program. And they did everything we wanted. They did drop it I think they mentioned it and dropped the SRD. No, we had the SRD. They said in sort of January time what was going to happen, and they did the thing exactly what I wanted. They gave us a date ahead of time. So they didn't kind of go, it's available today, which, like I said, what I wanted was some time. Now, they didn't give us lots of time. I think it was a few weeks, but there was time for people to, put the finishing touches on things they wanted to release, for me to knock something up in the time between the announcement and when it came out, so I could look. So that was good. I would have liked a longer lead in. I was hoping they'd say in January it's going to be out in March and have 2 months to work on something decent. Instead, I think we had about a week or 2 weeks.
It's all right.
But at least we got some time, because I would have liked more time and I would have spent it, doing stuff. But they did that, and we have the World Builders program now, and it's not exactly set in the world of light. And I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to take a guess at this. that there writing is hard. That's not a guess. Writing stuff is really hard. Coming up with a foggy idea that really sounds energizing and gets you excited is relatively easy. Doing the hard work of making sense of it so that someone can make sense of it when they read it when you're not in the room and they don't know who you are is really, really hard. And my guess is that there's a small number of people. I mean, 2D20 is a niche system, unfortunately. It's a niche system. And beyond that, there's a small share of people who are playing 2D20 who are serious enough about it to consider writing using it, like writing for not just themselves. Yeah. And so of that number, it just keeps shrinking down to like that number versus who actually decides, hey, I'm going to do this, to who actually starts doing it, to who actually finishes something, to who then doesn't get like, crazy anxiety or imposter syndrome or something like that, or they look at what they write and they keep trying to perfect it so that they never release it. You end up down to just this tiny number of people. The one thing I am surprised about is that it doesn't seem that Modiphius really does much to, and I could be wrong, maybe I'm missing all of this, but I'm on their email list. I visit their Discord. Something that I've been surprised about is that Modiphius doesn't seem to have done much to support or promote or raise the profile of world builders, period. They've mentioned in a couple of releases some of the things that people have put up there. They've done a little bit of that, but it just surprises me that they don't promote this more. Here's an odd thing. When you go to drive-through and you click on publishers, Modiphius, and then it gives you at the top of the screen all these tiles of their different systems, find world builders.
That's weird because normally doesn't it have the community. Well, it has the hot. Yeah, it does. Here's the problem. It gets its standard hottest community titles thing, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't have a separate world.
But what happened? No, if you go to drive-through's homepage and you click on publishers, you click on Modiphius, the top of the page, you have all these little rectangles of their different systems. World Builders is black on black. You have to mouse over it in the upper left-hand corner of that collection to even see it. At least how it renders, that's how it shows up on my screen.
I was going to say, when I do it, it comes... Oh, it has got world builds there. Yeah, mine. Yeah, maybe it's a... What are you looking at this on?
Anyway, point is, I'm surprised if they want to promote the game system and they want to promote people to, encourage people to get into it, there needs to be content. And so I don't understand why they don't promote it. I'm not saying that from like self-serving standpoint. Like I expect Modiphius to pimp my stuff that I put up there. Yeah, they are making money off of it, but it just seems odd that World Builders was like released. They said they were going to do these monthly things. They haven't.
I think you do have to look at the lack of stuff on there, though. So,
but is it like a chicken and the egg kind of issue?
I think it partly is. So, like DM's Guild was big because loads of people wrote stuff for it. So other people then bought it, and then loads of people went, "I'm going to write for it." And then people knew that, like, you could see what was selling, and so people could do more of that. Now, I still think another big problem with this. So, for example, on DM's Guild, most of the stuff I've released, I mean, small things, are mostly rules. So I released, new archetypes and new races, and pretty much it. That's what I've released on DM's Guild. There's stuff like that, stuff that I could think about the rules, and I don't have to think about the setting. Now, straight away, they put in a thing that basically said anything that you put mechanics wise is open source. That anyone else can take it. Which straight away I think would have put a lot of people going, oh well, I was going to write a cyberpunk rule set with hacking rules and put that on, knowing full well that someone else could then take your hacking rules and put that into their cyberpunk.
I think that could be it. I think another issue, it's possible that some of the most popular properties for 2Day20 are things you can't write for. You can't write for Dune. You can't write for Star Trek. You can't write for... I think that's a really, you can't write for any of the licensed properties. And I'm not complaining about that. That's just, but that is a significant impediment to people jumping on there and sharing things for
I think you're spot on there, because after the time, I don't know, we've got between 9 and 6 months of it being out. I can't remember how long. There's still only 29 products on it. That's tiny.
Yeah, it's nothing.
And of those 29 products, like a
That's a
bunch of those
small ball
unicorns.
publisher. That's an individual with a small ball list on DM's Guild.
I mean, they do vary massively in size. You've got,
Sure.
your 200-page Aris thing, and then you've got other things which are,
A
like
page
small.
or three.
And there was a
Yeah.
bunch of people who basically just reformatted the SRD and released that up. I'm glad people stopped doing that very quickly.
Well, I think it was done and it's useful, but it's done.
They did do it. It does exist. We have an SRD now. We can't keep complaining that it doesn't exist, and it's there. I guess for next year we can ask what we can do better.
All right.
So then we did have a talk about. We got it the wrong way round. We thought that we knew Cohors was coming out, but I think we were under the impression that Cohors was going to release in 2024, and we would I thought literally on the thing I said we'll probably have the PDF. We might not have the book. Well, we have neither. We had a quick start and we had a Kickstarter. Which, thinking about it, I have no idea how well that Kickstarter did.
Oh, it funded. It's done.
Oh, it funded, but I mean, like how?
So
how well?
So and I don't remember exactly because it was fuzzy wuzzy. Like there was all that announcement stuff about Cohors, and then it seemed to just disappear for a really long period of time. And then came information about the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter happened. That's the end of it. And it felt. I mean, we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes in terms of Modiphius's, production, internal writing and production. But it seemed like that Cohors was going to happen and then Dreams and Machines. And it's turned into the flip side of that.
Yeah. So Cohors, we got 200,000 on their Kickstarter with a 50,000 goal. So not terrible, but also not setting the world alight. But instead we got a load of stuff for Dreams Machines. We got the quick start for Dreams Machines. Then we got a starter box. And then we actually got 2 books, all of which released. So kind of almost the complete opposite. To me, Dreams and Machines was the risky product that needed a Kickstarter to see if there was even interest in it. And Cohors had the ready built-in audience, which, have done that. I mean, again, we don't know how Dreams and Machines is doing. The 2 separate books are in the top 30 on drive-through,
right?
Which is okay. But then I'm looking and seeing that that's still below the stars without number.
That's only on drive-through though. There could be people ordering it directly from Modiphius.
I know it's literally the only thing I can look at. It's the only way I've got to know things.
So,
but it's out. So we have that stuff, and we will at some point do a review of the starter box. I have been put off buying the books basically by the price of the 2 books. The 2 books plus Poach's.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Is money, so I haven't gone for it yet. But
so Modiphius puts out, and we had some guesswork and what it seemed like. Modiphius is then in gaming world writ large. I see for us, Modiphius is putting out or is in the process of has made progress to these 2 entirely new 2D20 lines. The other big thing, and I don't want to talk about it much, but it must be mentioned. The other big thing that I remember from 2023 in gaming is the great OGL war of winter 2023, early 2023.
Which
and
WotC's
is seeming strategic withdrawal. But frankly, I honestly, with D&D, whatever it's called, that's coming out in 2024, I have absolutely no doubt that WotC will do something else stupid to piss off a bunch of people. I have absolutely no doubt that they will do that. They will do something clumsy and ham-handed, and there will be this giant, stupid social media row, and people will say, I'm going to go make my own system, and then whatever. But that's the other big thing.
Yeah, that did happen. Other people have gone and announced their own version of the OGLs. Other people have announced their own systems.
Yeah,
but that's all stuff that's going to be happening. So we can talk about that a bit in our looking ahead.
Yeah.
But kind of at the time, it was essentially it faded away very quickly into 23, as far as we were concerned, because they just said, well, we're not doing that.
It's like so many other things on social media. For the the Twitter trolls and the like, it becomes this breathless everything until they move on to the next breathless everything.
Well, I mean, it was great for people's YouTube views, and hopefully we never sink into that, chasing the hits with the inflammatory D&D is dead.
Oh, better yet, what I love, it's the YouTube thumbnail with the person the stupid look on their face. I hate those. I'll never do those.
The worded things that you can put in a thing. And we've been
All right.
it'd be like if we did a 2D20 is dead and did that as our,
Right.
as the headline.
And we have like bad pictures of us with
Definitely.
our eyes bugged out and X's over our eyes on the thumbnail. So how about
we
our gaming?
Oh, I just want to get one thing in. We did also talk about what they were going to release for Star Trek. You got your ship book, which you were happy about.
Yeah, very.
And
Captain's Log came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And that was the crazy one. I was hoping for a Picard book. I didn't get that, but I got Lower Decks, which I'm happy with the Lower Decks. But yeah, Captain's Log, which was great. It's probably the best thing that they released all year, I would have said. And literally came out of nowhere. Like, just crazy.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of episodes out of that. So, yes, and probably more in the future. It was it was really good stuff. We'll do that. So thank you for Captain's Log, whoever had that idea. Brilliant one.
Agreed. So now what about our gaming? We had you had this plan, I remember, for this multi-GM 5e campaign in a homebrew world. Very interesting. And it came to...
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, it's one of those things where I'd like to do a whole episode, but it's not worth it. Essentially, we started off really well. By the end of January, I think we'd all run our introductory sessions. By February, we'd all done 2 or 3 sessions. And then Scott never ran another session for the rest of the year. Me and Brian were then kind of doing one of us would do 2 episodes, the other person would do 2 episodes. And then as we got close to the summer, I knew what was going to happen. I knew we would have a massive break over the summer. We wouldn't be able to play. And I was like, right, I want to wrap up my game before it just dies. And so I managed to wrap up my story. Pretty happy. I was happy with how it finished. I was happy with the progress that I did, the fact that we played through this campaign. But essentially, Brian then didn't manage to finish it, and we never went back to it. So
these things happen.
This is why I am the forever GM, because I'm the only one that will commit to actually doing it.
We could talk about that. Maybe that's an episode for 2024, like navigating the waves and the eddies of life as they impact your gaming schedule.
And then I haven't done any more role playing since then. I think it's a combination of scheduling meeting and having played so much role playing over the first half of the year. The guys wanted to do more board gaming, and in fact, there was a month and a half where I didn't even see Scott because he was busy with family stuff, like you saying, life going away.
That happens. Didn't
have that was my role playing for the year.
About 3/4 of my year, aside from a one-off here and there, was as a player, which is the first time in a long time in a 5e campaign, and that is now done. And now I am running Kingmaker, the old Pathfinder adventure path, but I'm using Castles and Crusades. And we can talk about that more in the future. But yeah, my gaming has actually been very consistent this year, which has been nice, but not a lot to report because 75, almost 80% of the year was taken up by one thing with me in one capacity.
You must have run something in at the start of the year. You weren't playing 5e at the start of the year.
Yeah. Really? We finished up Octoon Cthulhu at the end of last year. And then, as always happens during the holiday season, we ran a bunch of one-offs just because, one person was gone. And when I was running Octoon, I had 3 players. So if one person was down, it was like we just weren't, we would run something else. A one-off here and there. I ran a number, like as I said earlier, I ran a number of sessions of Aris at cons, game stores, so on and so forth. And now, okay, so outside of our gaming, we talk about gaming writ large. And our gaming, what other things that are related to gaming are worth mentioning that were connected to this last year?
I'd say there's quite a lot of other role-playing game things I've read that I haven't get to play, like a lot of things that I've come across, because even when I am not role-playing and all I've played this year is 5e, and one of the classic things that I've probably played 5e with books that are years and years old. But I have still bought other things and I've read other things. So, Fabula Ultima I quite enjoy, which is it's weird. It's based on sort of Japanese computer games, but turned into a tabletop role-playing game. That's quite cool. I have actually got Dragonbane, but I'm looking at it in its shrink wrap and thinking, we need to talk about some Free League stuff because then I might actually open things. One big thing for me this year is that the D&D film came out and was really enjoyable.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. It had a lot of call outs to stuff from that was familiar. They didn't ruin the property. It wasn't they weren't taking the piss out of things. They they were treating it with love and attention and clearly enjoyed it. And the people in it seemed like they were having a lot of fun, and they had lots of good stuff in it. So that was really good. And I am hoping that does mean we will get, I think at the moment they're saying there probably is going to be a sequel. It didn't make as much money as I was hoping.
No.
But then lots of films this year have done terribly. So actually, I think if you look at how much money it made this year, okay, it didn't do Barbie or Mario numbers, which would have been
a lot of horrible films this year, though. But yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm glad D&D as a film, I'm sure it pleased lots of folks like us. I'm sure it pleased lots of younger gamers, and hopefully it exposed the idea of gaming to more people. So yeah, I thought that was a good like a high point, I think, for 2023.
The Marvel game did actually come out and was massively improved. I kind of feel like all of that work I did crunching the numbers
maybe they
during
listened.
2022 was worth it, because I did a lot of sitting there looking at numbers and sending all this feedback, thinking, is there any point to doing all this? And a good chunk of the stuff they had listened. The game is now playable. It's fun. I've managed to run it with like a bunch of, we're not a bunch, but I managed to run it with some people that were like sort of, I know, they're 4 or 5 or something. And it's a decent game. Is it the best Marvel game ever? I don't know. Maybe that's a whole episode.
That's arguable. Yeah, whatever.
But it's the current Marvel game, and it's playable, whereas the beta was not.
Right.
It was awful. So yeah, that was good. I don't think it's not exactly been a vintage year for gaming. It seems like, that not a huge amount of awe-inspiring stuff has come out, and a lot of it has been, I feel like a lot of people have been waiting for this D&D thing that's going to be out in another year.
Yeah. Like, what is this other version going to be, rules-wise, canon-wise, how is it format-wise? Yeah, I agree.
One thing I have noticed I've spent more time this year on Reddit really than used to be. The main forum thing I was always on is RPG.net forums. It's kind of an echo chamber of stuff, but I find it very hard to navigate that now. You go onto it, and they used to cap a thread at a certain size, at which point it would die and you would have to start a new one. Now they just seem endless. So you see these things and it's got like 100 pages, and you think, well, I'm not going to read through 100 pages of
that's hard. It's almost like like stepping into a series, like a television series that's really long running. You're like, I don't even know where to start, so I'm not going to.
Well, that's why I struggle with Discord. Like, if I go onto the Modifius Discord, you're always in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah.
There is a thread function, but no one uses it. So I find it very hard to work out what's going on.
Yeah.
Reddit's great. There's always new posts all the time. And you can see they're never crazy long, so you can read through it, and, you can throw in a thing very easily and respond to different people. And that's the other problem with like a forum. When you respond to someone, where your response might appear, nowhere near where that person. You respond on Reddit, it appears straight to the person and they get notified. So it works quite well. But I have noticed that you still get that, the most popular thing on Reddit is always going to be recommend me a system for X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And you've still always got the thing of everyone hates D&D, which is funny. And everyone always just recommends their favorite system.
Sure.
And the flavor of the month, definitely at the moment, is Blades in the Dark. According to most people on Reddit, Blades in the Dark is the solution for everything. Whether it's fancy, you can definitely use Blades in the Dark. Someone's put like Cyberpunk. You can do Blades. There's this hat with Blades in the Dark. Mork Borg's another one. Mork Borg's amazing. And Cyborg and Pirate Borg. And you're like,
whatever.
Some of these probably do work in a very specific. It's exactly like Fate and Powered by the Apocalypse 5 years ago. Those things work very well for a very particular purpose, for a very particular kind of thing. But people suggest them for everything.
Right.
I'm not there suggesting 2D20 for everything, just for some things.
Right. Well, we talked about that. I mean, that's that whole idea of system, setting, and story. Like the system needs to support the setting and the story, the vibe that you're trying to establish.
Have you got any other game? You don't look massively into other gaming, do you?
No, I don't. I mean, and it's tough because, especially, like I said, the first half of this year I was chest deep in Eris, writing. And so there have been times I'll spend time on Reddit, but I have not in a long time. I should get back to that, but anyway.
So before we get to our final category thing, which Jeremy is apparently very excited about, I did want to briefly talk about just the non-gaming completely. parts of our year. My blog is basically, anyone who cares is basically died. I managed to find a way to move it off the paid platform and back onto the free platform it was once on. But I just really don't have the time or the inclination to write about it. I think pretty much everything I would write about goes into this podcast, or I throw it up on, things on something like Reddit, writing about stuff. Definitely my blog had got to the point I was writing for the sake of writing, or I was writing chasing views. And when I wrote stuff that I was interested in, I think this is where it's different. I can talk about something I'm interested in with you and we have a conversation. When I was writing just for myself, if I was, you write something and then how do you know it's well received? Well, you go and see how many views it's got. And when no one reads it, you're kind of like, oh.
You have no idea. Pointless. Was it a promotional problem or was it a content problem? Yeah. These are the kinds of things you have to learn if you're going to put stuff out there and you want to try to get good things in front of people. You have to write something good, but then it's how do you get it in front of people? That's tough.
Whereas here we kind of have that thing, oh, I think that was a good idea. I think that was a good idea. Okay, that's us saying to other. But then we do have the Discord and people do say, I liked that episode.
Yeah.
I view, the one we did on canon characters, someone did say, I really liked that. I'm going to do something, so we get responses on things. So it's not just us. We can talk to other people about it. So that's good. Outside, completely unrelated to gaming. Actually, I have to say 2023 was a really, really good year. Having finally got past all of the utter crapness of COVID, I finally got to go to Florida, which I know isn't your thing, but
I like Florida too.
We've been planning on going to Disney World. It's start of 2020 was when we booked our Florida trip. 3 years later, after COVID stopped being a thing, we finally got to Florida, had an amazing night. I absolutely loved Galaxy's Edge. Just feeling like I was actually in Star Wars. I literally felt like I had gone to another planet and I was there and it was amazing. I've since converted like a good chunk of what is kind of my study / middle room into like a Star Wars room, which I'm very happy with. And there was other stuff. Mika turned 40 and we did a whole bunch of stuff for her birthday.
Kids.
And he's now gone into high school because we start high school here at 11, not 15 like you do. And I've gone back full time. But overall, this year has been a really, really good year. So yay to 2023.
Yeah, me too. Actually, 2023, I mean, has been good. My older daughter got married, which is freaky and weird. But
how many camels did you get?
I got no camels. This was not this. This was a nice Midwestern boy. They don't give up camels or cows or anything like that. Nothing along those lines. But yeah, it's good. It's good. And otherwise work's been good. My work and whatnot. And it's been a good year. That is all I have to say about that.
Well done 2023 for not sucking, unlike some of your previous.
That's right, some of your predecessors.
Yeah.
Now on to awards. I think this is a clever way to cap things off as we review our year. Wait a minute.
I'm going to go for this one. I'm going to go for the best resource I used for a game. The best resource I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use a category. The best resource I used for a game this year was AI. Now, I know it's a dirty word in lots of places.
Sure.
But, I use ChatGPT to generate me like riddles and puzzles and like whole adventures, which was really good. So, literally just say, I want a dungeon that's like this, and it would theme me a bunch of rooms. And then I took that and I never took what it gave me and just ran with that. I always took what it gave me, or I'd do 3 or 4 attempts and I'd piece together. But that saved me tons of work.
Yeah.
And I really like the use of AI for art. Now, funny, we did an episode on this earlier in the year, and everything I created at the time was awful. But you've
gotten a lot better.
Well, it's just not me. It's just it's the software essentially. The AI has got so much better that now if you give a half decent prompt to one of these things, it will generate you stuff that looks quite good. Now, is that quite good because it's ripping off existing people's art? I don't know. I'm not sticking this in like a thing or put it on a website. This is for my own personal use. For if I want what a character looks like, I don't have to trawl through the internet or trawl through Pinterest trying to find a character image which suits what I want. I can just use some AI created stuff. So that's great for like NPCs and that's great for characters. And that's a really good resource. So AI.
I think we need to. I think that we need to do. Yeah. We need to revisit AI early in 2024 because I've got a lot more experience with it doing different kinds of things. So yeah, that's a good award. AI could be controversial for some people, but it's not like it's something to ignore. I think that's a good one to hand out.
Go on then.
Okay, so my first award, and really this is my biggest, I'm going to give to the 2D20 SRD. And you said it. You said that thing has no business being, and no SRD has any business having that much detail, that much explanation, that many options. Every other SRD I've seen is pretty much the most streamlined version of rules, and that's it. The Modiphius 2D20 SRD provides you with commentary and optional rules and optional ways of approaching things and all kinds of content and GM ideas, like 20 some odd pages of GM ideas that apply to, well, I mean, it makes sense because 2D20 is a common core mechanic with some common features like the meta currencies, but it's a little bit too significantly different in every single game it's used on. And so it makes sense that an SRD would be more expansive. So I absolutely think that SRD deserves a big award because of what it has enabled me to do. And also, as I've thought about other things I might want to do at my own table with the system or with things I might produce, it's given me lots of ideas. I would not be just reproducing the same mechanic and hanging content on it. The SRD I think gives me enough to think about. So I think that's outstanding. So there's an award. There's my first.
I'm going to combine one. So best game I played or GM'd, I'm going to cheat to put these together. Now, realistically, the reason I couldn't really give this award, and I've just realized why I can't, is because I played in, I can. Oh. I played in a D&D game, but Scott only ran 2 sessions, and they were fun. And Brian only ran, he ran a bunch of sessions. And the only thing I ran this year really was 5e. Yeah. And it was all right, but it got very railroady at bits. But then I realized, no, there was another game that I both played and ran this year, which was Captain's Log.
Yes.
And we've mentioned it again. And I'm giving Captain's Log an award because of Captain's Log. Me and Jeremy were able to play Star Trek over the internet. And it was, well, by the time we got nearer the end, it was good fun. When Jeremy got over when you got over your angst,
you're right.
Am I doing this right? What are we? I don't understand what's going on. It was like, look, we're meant to be having. Don't worry about it. You're overthinking this. Let's just have fun, and we'll get a story out of it.
Yeah.
And we got a story, and a good chunk of our crew, the red shirts died. They were meant to die, and they did die. And our main character survived.
I am going to jointly offer up that award with you. Captain's Log is, if you have any interest in Star Trek, Captain's Log is really outstanding for a bunch of different reasons. If you have a friend who is somewhere else and you would like to play a game with, you can do that just like we did, and it totally works. It absolutely works. You don't need maps, you don't need minis, you don't need any kind of, you don't need to learn how to use a VTT. You can just talk. That's it, and it worked. And Captain's Log, when I run Star Trek Adventures again at some point in the future, Captain's Log will be a major planning and story contribution feature. I'm going to treat that book like an AI to pump out other ideas and context that will go around the campaign that I'm running and the things that my players are doing. So yeah, hats off to that big time.
You got another one?
I do. I have one more.
I'm trying to, I might have to give 2 because I can't decide which.
We don't have to be even.
No, I mean, in terms of, I've got an award, but I can't decide who to go it to. So I'm going to have to just give it to 2 things because I can't narrow it down to 1.
Okay. I'm going to give an award to the best game that I GM'd. It is not to me, it's to the game experience, which is a product of what I did, but it's also a product of players. Does that make sense?
No, but I'm sure when you say what it is, it will.
I'm not trying to award myself something. I'm going to say that the couple of games, and I'm smushing them together. I ran a few sessions of Aris at a local game convention over the summer, and it was fascinating, enlightening, and gratifying to see what people did with the system and the story, the game that I had created. And that there were ideas that I had about how players could use spells and talents flexibly at the table using momentum and other features of the system. And I hoped that's what people would do. Now, I had no guarantee that people would see that in my game, but people did. And people did without me coaxing them to. They recognized like, oh, I can do more than just the power says I do this, so I do that, and that's it. Creative use of facets of characters is really what I hope was one of the major things that I hoped for in the system, and it was gratifying to see people able to do that. People I'd never met and who'd never, had just decided to take a chance on this game and me for 4 hours at a game convention. So those were really, they were a lot of fun. How about you? You said you can't decide who, so just go for it.
Yeah, I was going. So I've written one for like the best game I read. So as much as I like, as much as I like Captain's Log, because it has loads of really cool stuff, I have actually used that. So this is something I've just read and not played, but I can't separate it. There's two. One is I've previously mentioned this very strange game called Fabula Ultima, which I had not heard of till the start of the year, and it suddenly popped up. And it's really hard trying to get hold of the actual book.
Mm-hmm.
There's like one. In fact, I had to get it. I think I had to get it through Modifius, the actual book, because I'm going to have to get the PDF online. But it's trying to do a role-playing game like Japanese computer role-playing game, but I think it does a really good job, and it just reads really well. It has nice kind of this anime kind adjacent art, and it's just a really well-produced, well-put-together book. And there's more stuff coming out for it. And I'm looking forward to play. It's a relatively straightforward system. It's quick to play, but has some tactical element, like the players can bounce things off each other and work together. So it seems like it'll be good in play. And the other one is something I've literally only discovered in the last week, which I remember seeing on Kickstarter, and I didn't back it. It's always what happens. I back stuff that's rubbish and I miss the stuff that's good. It's called Outgunned. It's basically an action movie role-playing game. So like Feng Shui, if you take away all of the weird Eastern stuff. But it's a very simple system. But reading through it, they released a second book called Action Flicks. And for their stretch goals, they basically did, right, well, you can have cyberpunk things, or like they literally didn't do fantasy. It was like different things. So cyberpunk, and then they literally did Ghostbusters, and then they did like things like Blade and the not Twilight films, the Underworld films. And so there's a whole bunch of these, and each time you read one, it suggests a bunch of like characters that would be good for this thing, and it name drops a bunch of the films you should watch, and it's clearly very well researched. I just remember reading through like they don't call it the Scoundrel, but it's basically the Scoundrel character in their space opera ripoff they call Star Raiders. And the characters listed, like these are the pinnacle of things, including relatively obscure TV shows that I've watched, that like the only people I know that watch is like me and Mika, and they name drop this characters. Like these people clearly know their stuff. Yeah. And they've created a thing which will do action hero kind of films really good. And I'm reading through one of the things, and it's got like John Matrix from Commando, and I was like, oh, this is this is good stuff in this. And so just reading through the book has been an absolute pleasure. I'm really looking forward to running it. And the funny thing is, both of these games are by Italians. Both of these completely separate companies, completely separate games.
Which happen to be
from Italy. So the two best things I've read this year are both Italians. We're reading through it, and I have to think like the way they've written it. This is like, it's written in a very informal style to get you into it, as opposed to a lot of role-playing books are very dry. Sure. And yet it's not their first language. So
interesting. Well done.
Very impressed.
Let's do this. Let's in early 2024, let's do a review of that. Let's look into it in more depth, because it sounds like it deserves some attention. And especially when you've got writers who are not writing from, the English language as their original, and they're publishing in the English language, hey, if we can point a spotlight at them, and that would be cool.
I'm hoping Outgunned will be what I run before Christmas, partly because I'm thinking, I need a one-shot thing near Christmas. Oh, wait a minute, Christmas action film. I can do Die Hard, or I can do Lethal Weapon, or I can join them together. So just like, yes, that's my plan. They won't be rescuing Santa this year. They'll be shooting up some terrorists in a high-rise building while one of the characters says, I'm too old for this shit.
Well, yeah, someone has to.
Yes, that's my plan. That's like the start of my plan. I don't know how I'm going to get this done, but I've got a week. Be fine.
So overall, like you said, thank you. 2023 has been good. No year is perfect, so it's not worth getting upset about. But 2023 has been a good one. It's been a lot of interesting stuff in gaming. You and I have both. We had some plans that came to fruition and some that did not. And I think we have a lot to look forward to. And we'll do some forecasting as to, like, formally what we hope for and what we are planning to do with the show. We're going to do that in our next episode.
Yep. So look forward to seeing you then.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. You can visit our show's homepage at anchor.fm/Fluff and Crunch. That's FLUFFNCRUNCH. We would really appreciate feedback and reviews on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to this on. Thanks so much.